for 13 years. I actually started out as a history teacher, and then I went back to school. I got my master's in special ed, and I was a special ed teacher, which actually is what led me to science, because my position paired me up in an all-day co-teaching situation with our, at the time, department leader in biology. And I fell in love with science in 2 short years, and the job of STEM implementation specialist with our district popped up. So I applied for that. I was like, hey, I'm really good with people. And I think that's what this job requires, along with knowing how to connect the disciplines. So I applied and got that job. I'm now in my 3rd year of STEM-IS. And this is my partner.
I'm Bryce Schulwright. I've been teaching for 16 years. 15 of those years, the first 8 were I was a middle school science teacher. Then the next 7, I went up to high school, and as Nicole said, that's where she and I worked together for 2 years. So in the high school, I taught biology, AP biology, environmental science. And then just this year, this is my first year as a STEM implementation specialist. So Nicole and I were reunited.
Yes.
And it feels so good.
Absolutely.
Yes. So anyway, we've been working together. Obviously, like I said, we taught together for 2 years, and then we've continued to work together with her doing as the STEM-IS, and then now, once again, both of us teaming up.
And we're both site embedded, so we stay with the high school the whole time. We don't travel around to other schools or anything. Whereas our district does have other, they call them general ISs, who travel around from school to school. So it's awesome being site embedded.
We're at Sparks High School.
Yes, we're at Sparks High School, which is local here in Reno. And really the purpose of why we wanted to present today is because we get a lot of amazing information from university folks and from book authors and from people who have sat on the framework committee and other committees and all the amazing people from Achieve. But what do you do with that? So how do you get started? So this is our attempt at trying to bring the NGSS to the science department at Sparks High School. It's how we ground level threw it out there. And it's a little bit vulnerable because it wasn't the best way, but it was a way.
So we're gonna walk you through what we did at Sparks High School. Like we said, we've learned some stuff. We're gonna do things differently. If we could go back and do it again. A little bit about Sparks High School.
Yeah, so we actually, all of our feeders, all of our elementaries and middle schools were all title, except we weren't. And so we didn't get our title status until the 14-15 school year. Once we got that was exciting because that did bring some extra money for professional development. We outfitted our school with a lot of technology, so we feel really fortunate about that. We have about 1,220 students as of last count for this school year, and of that, approximately 70% of our students are Latino or Hispanic. As far as when did we do this in time, our school district has what they call Early Release Wednesdays, and that's for teacher professional development. Side by side, it depends on your schedule, but our teacher's time is from about 2 o'clock to 3:15. So it just sort of varies an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, and that's the time frame that we had to work with our teachers, and we had it for 1 semester, but it wasn't every Wednesday. We had, I would estimate, I think we had originally planned on 9 to 11 contact hours with the teachers, but we ended up with about 7 to 8, 7 to 9. So when you're looking at the things that we did, think of it in that time frame is really all we kind of had. Time's a huge thing for folks. As far as where is Nevada, with the NGSS, we officially adopted it as a state last February in 2014. District-wise, the district had not yet come out with a plan to roll it out to schools, such as there wasn't a, hey, this is going to be the professional development that we're all going to do, here's how it's going to look in elementary, so on and so forth. But we have an incredible principal, Kevin Carroll, and a wonderful administrative team who supported us on the idea of, we're doing it now. We're just going to go for it and start learning. The whole idea is to better prepare our students and really bring science out, right? The NGSS, it's just so exciting with these new standards. So our principal signed off on it and said, have have a great time. I'm here for your support.
What's nice though too is Kevin Carroll was a former science teacher. So that's why we started, obviously, and we had his support, and so he felt deeply committed to science.
And he's still our principal.
And he still is. So what you have at your seat, hopefully you grabbed one, is one of these windshields. Now, we actually did not do this activity with our teachers. We've kind of got this activity prior. We're like, oh, we could have done that with them as like right at the beginning. We'll kind of get them into, get an idea of where they were at. So if you look, there's 5 different windshields there, and you can look at these questions up here to kind of say, okay, and pick what windshield you might identify with. So, understanding around NGSS, or supporting teachers, or school vision around this. So just take a minute and think, what windshield would fit you on one of those questions?
This activity could be used as an opener for bringing NGSS to your department or your teachers. It could be used, honestly, for anything in professional development, sort of where's your understanding at that time. So I think it can be used for that.
Anybody want to share where they think they might be on one of those topics?
I think I have the second one down on the left, the blue
The
stuff.
kind of cloudy looking one.
Because there's still some like fuzzy areas that I'm not sure about, but I feel like I like it, and I think once you get past that, it's like clear skies. It's like a bright future for the kids and learning science. So.
Anybody else?
That last one, our principal this year, she allowed us to just kind of take an idea from it, and we integrated 7th grade, where we started with physical, we're on life now, with a little bit of earth and come back to life. Where many schools are still 7th grade is life science, 8th grade is physical science. She's giving us that option to integrate. So
That is
I think
amazing.
over the next few years, I'll see some kind of effects from that, but I think in the long run, I think that's what we should be moving.
Absolutely.
When we start,
Sorry, I felt with our school's confidence at the bottom, and she kind of just go take it and run with it.
Clear vision.
clear sound. When we started this process, I'll tell you, I was the shattered windshield because I had some understanding of the NGSS, but it was very fractured, very fragmented. Like Nicole said, district training was not great. It gave us a little, gave us some information about it, but there was no connection. So that's to give you an idea of what it was like for me. That's where I was coming from when we started this process.
And this also could be something you could use even mid-process of learning with your students or with your teachers, and maybe at the end. So maybe I started out with a snow-covered windshield, but at the end of this year, I'm clear, I know where I'm going, and I'm excited to get there. So feel free to take these if it's something that you think you could use in your classroom or with the teachers that you work with.
And we do have, if you didn't get a color copy, we do have some other color copies. So, there's going to be, as you can see, we've got a windshield, we've got some driving questions. So there's going to be a driving sort of road trip kind of theme here. So you'll see that as we go through. So these are the questions that we came up with. Nicole worked with, we have a STEM coordinator in Washington County School District. And then we also worked with the middle school, one of our feeder middle schools, their implementation specialist, to come up with these questions. So, and both of these questions are kind of we're driving our learning and hoping that you drive the understanding of our teachers. So you can see there, obviously it's around NGSS, but what's the teacher's role in that? What's their job? And then we, as you know, it's about 3 dimensions in the NGSS, and so how are they going to plan for that? And then integrating STEM into that. So that was kind of what our thinking, and those were the questions that we focused on as we gave professional development to our teachers on those PLC principles.
So this is the first thing that I created, and I really it started because I was just trying to be cute, and be like, hey, here's what's going on. So I printed out this little roadmap, and then I used just these little orange Post-it notes to write what I thought we were going to try to do. So you can see the dates are on there. The red X's, so those were planned ideas, but something happened or we realized in the learning we're going way too fast. And that was noticed, I would say for me, after the second time I met with the group, and I thought, oh my goodness, I'm going through this a little bit too quickly. The 10-1, the Teaching for Understanding, that was based on, I was sent to an Understanding by Design pre-conference. Actually, a lot of us were, and so I was going to try to bring in some of those principles and try to connect that all with NGSS and STEM. And then I just realized, you know what, we're just not there yet. So back up, chill out. and then I realized too, so 12.3, the DCIs and the storylines, we just kind of made an executive decision to sort of just not do that anymore. And I think the reason why was because our teachers most identified with the DCIs.
And we'll talk more about
And well, yeah, so
disciplinary core ideas.
What?
Disciplinary core ideas.
Yeah.
So NGSS, as you know, there's the performance expectations, and then it's broken down into science and engineering practices, disciplinary core ideas, and then cross-cutting concepts.
So the reason why I also had mentioned earlier that we were short on time is we really had, the plan was first semester, gain some understanding around NGSS, because in January, our teachers were going to be trained from the Buck Institute for project-based learning, which we were really excited about because we naturally saw a relationship early on, even prior to the training. So we wanted to give them some work around the standards so that they knew some way to kind of use it in developing their units. And then second semester we spent kind of split time on that.
And we'll talk about
Yeah. So, first thing that, yes, go ahead.
Who did you say was doing your training for PBL?
The Buck Institute for Education, BIE, and their website is BIE.org. And we are still working with them right now. We have a district contract for 9 of our schools.
And they are sort of
They're
the ones for project-based.
yeah, the gurus, yeah, on PBL. So the book that we used, and actually the authors were here. I don't know if any of you attended this session, but it was Thursday morning at 8 a.m. And this is Introducing Teachers and Administrators to the NGSS. So when we originally started our planning, I didn't know that our STEM coordinator was looking at pieces of this book. I didn't have it at the time. I actually didn't get this book until March. So once I got this book and I realized, oh man, there was so much more stuff we could have done. It's a great book, and the authors on Thursday did some really wonderful hands-on activities that also helped my understanding about how we really should be introducing this to our teachers. So anyway, the shift activity that we're going to talk about comes from this book. So one of the first things that we did is we showed teachers a clip of Stephen Pruitt from Achieve speaking at the National Conference in March of 2012. This PowerPoint and all of our electronic materials will be available at NSTA. Unfortunately, without the Wi-Fi in here, we can't play the clip. But what we did is we played him speaking, and then at about 2:59, the last thing he says, "Are we moving the ball forward?" And we felt like that was a really good, let's stop and reflect and let's think about where we are in science education, where we are with our students. Are we really moving the ball forward? And to what? That could be a myriad of things that teachers define. Are we moving them forward in their concept mastery? Are we moving them forward to be productive citizens in the U.S.? Are we moving them forward to be prepared for STEM careers? What are we doing? So we just wanted them to think about that. And that's why we asked them to consider this question. So we just had him pair up, and the question is, if we're going to move the ball forward in science instruction, what shifts do we, as teachers, need to make? So we gave them some time to contemplate that, and then asked Paris to share out.
In our district, college and career readiness, and I'm
It's
sure
always the-
is
yeah.
that's a big thing. So
from there, we split the teachers into 3 groups. So group one had 1 and 5, 2 had 3 and 4, group 3 had shifts 2 and 6. And we had them read about what are the shifts, and then try to apply that to the next purple question there. How will these shifts benefit student learning in your classroom? And so again, we wanted them to keep thinking about, so this is what they're saying we need to do. How does this translate to your classroom? And so we just wanted them to keep thinking and talking and thinking and talking. And again, we did the whole, okay, brainstorm, think about it. All right, who wants to share their thoughts and ideas around that? And started more of a collaborative group discussion. And then for exit that day, we asked them, where do you feel the most anxiety? And when we first started talking about the NGSS and the shifts, a lot of our teachers' anxiety was around higher ed, because their argument was, we don't understand why we have these new standards here if higher ed isn't going to change. If the kids are going to be tested still, multiple choice, lower level thinking, or how are we going to prepare them? And at the time, last year, we still had 2 more years of the high school science proficiency in Nevada.
An exit exam in science that students have to pass to graduate.
So our upper level teachers said, hey, I'm kind of throwing myself out there on the line. You want me to go this way, and I need to teach here so I can get them to graduate, because if they don't pass that science proficiency in Nevada, they don't graduate. So it was a real balance, because certainly they had a great point. At the same time, we were trying to get them to understand they're going to be more likely to actually understand it at a better level. So we're not saying toss out, parts of the cell or whatever. We're just saying let's get to it at a more conceptual level and do stuff with it instead of lecture note format. So we still battled with that a little bit, but they came around. So that was the good news.
Still a work in progress.
Yeah, it's still a work in progress, but progress is the key word, and so that was
Moving forward on the road.
Yeah, moving forward on the road. I like it. Okay.
So what we did then next is we actually looked at the 3 dimensions, like we talked about, the science and engineering practices, disciplinary core ideas, and the cross-cutting concepts. We didn't want to start with the performance expectations right out of the gate, because those 3 things support the performance expectations. So we started with the science and engineering practices to kind of get it, and we really showed them the 3 dimensions. So what's the overview? What are these 3 pieces of NGSS?
We printed out a piece of paper, obviously from the standards, and we had them look at that. Let's just look at how these are organized to try to get them to understand that those 3 dimensions all comprise the performance expectation.
Because for most of these teachers, for 15 years, we've been under the Nevada science standards. And so to give you an example, in life science, one of them was students know relationships of organisms and their physical environment. And that was a standard. So we know with NGSS that we want them to go far deeper using math in there, and also modeling. That's another big one. So we wanted to kind of show them, give them that overview of these 3 key pieces that are going to go into that performance expectation.
And like I mentioned earlier, our teachers gravitated right towards the disciplinary core ideas. And it kind of sucks that it's right in the middle, too, of the 3 dimensions, because their eyes just went right there and was like, oh, I know these, I got this.
Because
I'm
those
doing
disciplinary
this.
core ideas matched up with what that's
Yeah, like I'm doing this already, I just gotta make sure to do a little bit more. So, with the whole hashtag thing, I'm just like, hashtag, it's not just the DCIs. Let's think about that a little bit more. So, they started to expand their thinking.
Yeah, and like Nicole said, the disciplinary core ideas, that was what they were comfortable with. And like I said, I taught for 15 years. That's what before NGSS, that's what I used to teach. So I knew them. I knew exactly what I was teaching. I had these dialed in, and so obviously I'm going to gravitate towards that. Now, what we did have them do also is a sort where we have them look at scientists. What do they really do, right? And so we had some, the scientists and then a science student, and we had them match that up with some different
Different behaviors.
So like they use a universal accepted scientific method to define the process for pursuing questions. Is that a scientist or a science student?
Yeah, so with that activity, and that's also going to be available online if you want to use those cards. So what we had them do is just sort that out with a partner or a group of 3. What do you think about that? Whose job is what? After that, we had them read, and this is also available electronically. This came out of Ready, Set, Science in 2008 from the National Research Council. So what scientists really do. So after we had them do a sort, we had them read this.
So they sorted them, kind of matched up, and then they read that, and then they went back and reflected. Okay? Because I think the key thing with NGSS is we're trying to get students to be more like scientists. We want them to do science. And so
We don't want students sitting and taking information. We want them out there gathering, collecting, and interpreting the information. So
Doing
that's really
science.
the point of that activity. And another thing that you could do with that as well, so if you have teachers working in groups and you have them, they've got their 2 columns there, after redoing the information, you could have groups rotate around depending on how big your groups are. Just see what others' ideas were. Again, it just gets that discussion going and thinking about what do each 2 of these groups do and where should we be going with that.
yeah, you can have people, come around and do a gallery walk. There's a lot of things you can do.
Yeah, and just to back up for a minute too, I wanted to point out the purple. So one of the other activities we had within lesson 2 was we gave teachers specifically, so like for life science, we gave the life science group of teachers the old Nevada State Science Standards, and we gave them a couple examples of NGSS life science and had them just compare. So what do they look like in, how are they different in planning, structure, and we keep bringing it back to what does that mean for instruction? Has to keep coming back to that.
So once we have that we talked about this already with what scientists really do, and we had them go through that. So basically, what is this going to mean for your instruction? What are you going to do? How are you going to change how you teach to have your students be more like scientists? So that was the kind of general overview, and then we went into science and engineering practices. So why start there, right? Well, when you look at the NGSS, it's the first column under the performance expectation. So people that think linearly, they can start there. But it's also about doing stuff, right? Using math, making models. So that's why we decided to start with science and engineering practices, because that's more of the hands-on part of the NGSS. And we had them look in the framework.
Yeah, and it's just a quick read, which is good for PD. So it's page 42 in the framework, and it literally tells you why the practice is. And so it's just a quick, 1, 2, 3 paragraph read, short and sweet on why.
Because I'm like, well, why should I do this, right? I mean, and so, because, why not just teach the DCI? Why do I need to include these science and engineering practices as well? And so we had them go through that, and then we like posters.
Yeah,
So
in our
we
district, it seems like we really like posters.
we broke them up and had each group then, we gave them 2 practices, and we did this, and actually Marcus participated in this. So we had a vertical with our middle school. So we had, all the science teachers and broke them up, and then each group was given 2 of the practices to kind of summarize in a poster, give an idea of what the students are doing or what they be doing. What does this look like? Because, some of those science and engineering practices aren't that, me personally, I'm still the model part. I'm still using models. I'm still struggling with that. Because when I think of a model, I think of like something that I glued together as a kid. So I'm still working on that, and I know a lot of my colleagues are having trouble with it too. So, and then we had them share out what the practices, and there's 7 practices. So then they got an idea of what's involved in each one of those practices.
And again, when we're looking at this, we're really focusing on behavior. So what am I doing as the teacher? What are you doing as the student? And a little handout.
Didn't come out very well.
Yeah, it didn't come out very well because it was using cam scanner and the lighting in my house isn't very good. So this is just a quick handout that I created. created. I didn't save 8 different copies of each practice. But so in the boxes I have them thinking about, so behavior-wise, what is the teacher doing with this practice? What are the students doing? What inhibits students in the class from engaging in this practice? How can we solve that? And then at the bottom, why is this practice important for students to engage in? So again, it's just thinking about it. What are we going to do? What are our behaviors?
No. And so they had a note taker for each of the 7 practices, and then that helped them create their posters.
From there, we went on to the cross-cutting concepts. I forgot to mention when we started the practices lesson, we actually had revisited the shifts again to reacquaint everybody that went into the practices. Lesson 4, we connected back to the practices, and then we had them answer this question. Engaging in the practices is like blank, because blank. And there's these little cards that'll also be available online. This is another activity you could use,
These are the pictures.
really in any way.
I'm giving them the pictures.
Oh, you got, yeah. Okay. You want to just take a look at that, pass them around.
Yes. Yes, we had a bunch of different pictures, so you can, not everybody got the same ones.
Yeah, you just, you don't know how people are going to interpret things. So, I just happened to pull out the bike one. So maybe engaging in the practices is like trying to ride a new bike because it's new information. You know, so it's just having them look at the pictures in front of them, trying to make a connection. And it was a fun little way to open up the day because again, when you're talking about teaching teachers, they just taught all day and they're tired. And you need to be fun, quick, and to the point for the most part. So at the beginning of each thing, we always like to, first of all, acknowledge their day. How did they do? How's it going? And then try to have some kind of an activity. So.
Does anybody want to take a shot while you think about it?
Yeah. Can you do an example? Sure. First. You want to do an example?
Marcus, Marcus probably, because he's,
Okay.
I see Legos on that one. So
Uh-huh.
what kind of came to mind was engaging in the practices is like Legos because you have to find how they all fit together.
and there's a variety of ways to interpret this.
That's awesome. So again, it just goes back to thinking. So how are we thinking about this? What are we thinking of it?
Engaging in the practice is like a lightsaber because sometimes you might need to use Jedi mind tricks to get the students to buy in.
Good. Oh, cool Star Wars. Awesome. So, and again, these will be available electronically online in case you're interested in using that for anything. Oh, so I don't really think we have enough. No? Can we try that?
Sure.
We're gonna go ahead and try this. We've got a small group. We're gonna get you moving for a minute here. It's a model and activity that we did with our stuff.
So each one of you is going to get a piece of paper, and they're all going to be different colors. And what you're going to need to do is find 2 other people that have a different color than you.
And one of you will probably have the same. Well, actually, Bryster's gray.
We got 10 more. We got all kinds of different colors.
We do have all kinds of colors. You're welcome. So, when you're reading this piece of paper, you're going to be thinking about this question. How do the cross-cutting concepts lead students to a deeper understanding of science? So take a few minutes first on your own to read what your piece of paper even says.
Okay. So you need to get up. You're gonna have to find somebody else. And it shouldn't be hard because everybody's got a different color.
All right.
So your goal is to have about a minute and a half.
Two, so three, there should be groups of three.
There we go. There.
And I've got one, Nicole's got one.
How about a minute and a half conversation per person about how the information on your piece
You
of
gotta find
paper
somebody else. Different colors.
can help lead students to
Actually,
achieve
Johnson, you don't even.
Are they all different?
Come on. It's not blue.
Right?
Yep, I want you.
Great.
Okay, so mine's listener sign right here. We're trying to read this and see how does that apply to that purple question.
So you're applying your strip to the purple question.
How
So, go ahead.
to make students well, I'm not asking.
Yeah.
Sounds a little bit simpler.
Yeah, I mean, it's easier for them if they draw a model of it, or if there's or patterns or causes.
So mine says repetition of
And people
different
learn in
context.
different ways, right? Coaches
That's about cross-cutting concepts.
now, I don't know how to do this.
And mine is talking about how when students come in contact
Just
with
nature science
they can better understand the actual core ideas of
Okay.
Hi, come on in.
Or the idea.
John's watching.
So in how
Yeah.
you have a hypothesis, think about
So what
the
we
process.
We're talking about how do these
There was
strips of
something
paper
where they're like
connect with that.
engineering is solving a
stepwise.
problem,
Yeah,
and
solving
nature
a
of science is solving a question.
Think of like CER, what's your plan?
Yeah, this was their, besides just
It's a stepwise process to find the answer to
It's justified.
we took this from appendix
That's
A
way I see it.
and shelved it.
Yeah, that would make
Just
sense.
to kind of give them
And I think of engineering as solving a problem, and the problem is defined by, or the questions asked.
just a one piece of logic that I just
What's
used
yours?
and let's have a conversation with something that's
Oh, across the grade.
All right, find your partners.
I mean, which is probably the old standard.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do it. One more time. Find your
So
partners.
variation on this is to pick your partners and find another group to group up with a different color piece of paper.
Somebody you haven't been with yet.
Yeah, somebody you haven't been with yet. Got someone in the back.
New partners,
Well,
new
that's our
partners.
problem. What are we supposed to do?
Find new people.
Oh.
Find new people
Different colors.
with different colors. What do you got?
So mine is discussing how the cross-cutting concept should be assessed separately from the disciplinary.
And don't forget your guiding question on this is how do the cross-cutting concepts lead students to a deeper understanding of science? We're trying to make that connection for teachers.
Terms like pattern and system in the assessment to see if they're getting the cross-cutting concepts while you're testing for the GCIs and the.
And also with
What's yours?
with the assessment of that, making sure that we're hitting all of those different concepts and all of those different processes in our assessments instead of hitting one or two of them.
Discussion about making it different.
I'm working on that. I mean, so
You're not a unified research. How do you collaborate with the leader school, make sure the concepts that they have are so defined when they get to that level? Are they moving forward or re-teaching everything back?
Because ideally, each performance expectation in the NGSS has like by this grade, this is what they should know. And so you hope that,
Everything is covered, like I always have. It's not part of the standard, but you know,
It's been a big push. My wife is not mentioned at an elementary school. And math ed, so it just depends on the school. Every school has access to one, but many schools have an embedded where you're full
We gave up on
at this school.
because
And you're there to help
it doesn't like it's not applicable in my everyday life. I don't think in kilometers. I don't think. The only time I come across is when I buy a 2-liter bottle of soda, right? That means something to me. So mine says repetition of different contexts will be necessary to build familiarity. So I think with metrics, though, we're building that into lessons, and they have to use it and interact with it, and that's going to build that. They start at the lower grade, then it becomes familiar.
Well, one issue that we're facing is whether to go with the integrated model or and that consistent.
Oh, you know, I didn't know. I guess they are. Because mine, and then I also have right.
Yeah, we just.
So mine is complementary, right?
I'm in a charter school in South LA, like our school board is the project, and we get kids. The most we've had is kids from 23 from our middle schools, but usually it's like 18. Like we'll get some schools, it's just like 1 or 2, you know, but we have, usually it's between 18 and 20, so we get kids that come from really high achieving middle schools, and we have kids that didn't take science in middle school because they came from a private school. So it's hard. They're struggling because integrated was kind of like to level the playing field, and they're just, I think, like 60% of the freshmen are
Good, well, yeah, because it sounds like somebody did the first introduction.
since like 5th grade or something.
Maybe, I don't know. I mean, I know here in Washington County,
So that money to be the principal decides their principal values.
So I like what you said about, like, we just did it through lab, like they had to use metrics, they had to speak in metrics, because my kids didn't even know the difference between inches and centimeters, and I thought I had kids that were really behind, and other science teachers were like, they'll like measure something that's that big and say that it's like 7 inches.
I think the rulers have C for that.
Right.
Some rulers have centimeter or millimeter.
Okay, go ahead and bring your conversations to a close and have a seat. Hopefully you met somebody
and I
new
tell them,
today.
when I was teaching science, inches don't exist anymore.
Right.
Feet don't exist.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah, but like you said also, it's hard for them to relate to that because they won't hear it outside of like measure out, 50 grams of whatever. That's the only time they're gonna hear grams unless they're
True, good point.
Thank you for participating in that, so you can kind of get a sense of how you can run it. Well, they're actually, so where these came from, it came from Appendix K of the NGSS. Yes. Oh, you can, well, yeah, you can leave it on the chair. Oh, for sure. So yeah, that came straight from Appendix K from the NGSS, and we just chopped up the papers and made them on different colors. So, and Appendix K is an online
It's also
section
online.
of NGSS. So
Do you know how many there are?
total, I have, was it 10?
There's
Wait,
10.
9 or 10. Yeah, 9 or 10 different little areas. So we wanted to use this to get teachers to think about the cross-cutting concepts, obviously get up out of their chair, have a conversation with their colleagues, and then we hit them with a good old-fashioned jigsaw. So, yeah.
Now, I don't know about you all. I like the idea of a jigsaw,
Yeah.
and I've used it in a variety of different ways. And it seems to work better with adults, but me personally, I've never had success in my classroom with it. So, but we did have success with it here.
We did, and so I created little note takers for them again. So for example, if your note taker had the box under, say, cause and effect, then that was your focus, was cause and effect. And this was done individually because I think at that professional learning community meeting, we only had 8 teachers. So it's like, okay, every single one of you gets 1. So they had to just do a quick description, 1 to 2 sentences. Why is it important to teach this cross-cutting concept? What does this mean for instruction? What do students need to know within this cross-cutting concept prior to coming to your grade band? So we really wanted them to start to consider what do they need to come to you with, and again, what does this mean for instruction, and how does it redefine my role as a teacher? So we just keep coming back to those things. I would say we did more activities resonates with the cross-cutting concepts, I think because something that Stephen Pruitt said really resonated with me, and he said that he fears that the cross-cutting concepts will be the lost dimension. So we feel that they are so important, although, I mean, all three are equal, but we wanted to
And the
focus a
other
little bit more
piece is
for our
that
teachers.
in the cross-cutting concepts, it doesn't matter if, you know, and like for us in high school, if it's a physics teacher and a biology teacher and then a chemistry teacher, like cause and effect and scale and proportion and quantity, it goes across all the different subjects of science. So you can have that discussion with colleagues that don't teach the same subject as you do.
So from there, this takes us to our last lesson that we did with the teachers. And this one, I would say I was probably the most ignorant on, to be honest. So I read this article by Joe Kraychuk and a few other authors. It was published in the Journal of Science Teacher Education last year. And he lists out, on page 163 of that article, he lists out 10 steps to help teachers deconstruct the performance expectations. So I took those 10 steps and I turned them into a document that the teachers can work from. These are literally just straight off from his steps. I just turned them into questions to help the teachers think about that. I put it on the schedule as one, hey, we're gonna do this in one PLC, maybe two. We're still working on this.
So for me,
Yeah.
and we got together is with my biology teachers,
Yeah.
and we really started, you know, breaking down those performance expectations and looking at them. And so it was very helpful for me because we started looking at and really.
You really get deep into it.
And-
The way he has it, that Joe Kraychuk sets it up, I mean, he really does. It's a great way to deconstruct them. It really is.
Yeah, and so that was really helpful because then you also have to look at all three of the pieces. Now you might say, well, where, you know, so we really didn't focus on the DCI, the disciplinary core ideas, because those were very much like the standards that we had been working under before. So we really focused on the new pieces and the new learning for us. Engineering practices, science and engineering practices, and the cross-cutting.
Yeah, that's definitely was new for us. So.
It was much, and then taking this, and this was very helpful, because then we could put our heads together and just really think about how do those three dimensions fit together in our teaching.
Yeah, and I would say probably the part that I knew the least about and I did not anticipate was the bundling part. And I'm so glad there was a session offered on bundling here at this conference because I understand a little bit more about that. I just sort of assumed bundling as, hey, just stuff that goes together. So whatever you sort of feel, you know, goes together. I didn't really give the teachers that much instruction or help around that. I kind of just assumed that they were going to know how to do it, and they didn't. They really needed support on that.
Still need support. We still need support.
Still need support, and we're really excited to bring back what we learned about bundling here to continue to build on their knowledge. So this was huge. Took a few different sessions. Again, we're still working on this as a department.
And part of the reason why we're still working on that is because, like we talked about and mentioned earlier, in the spring, all of our science teachers got trained on project-based learning. So this was something else that we needed to also then support in that professional learning community. And it fits very well with the NGSS because projects and project-based learning, it's perfect for it. I mean, NGSS, the performance expectations are very much like doing a project, and not just like a little, you know, we've all done projects, but this project-based learning, as you can see, is much more involved than this. And there's actually, the big piece of this is that the students present to somebody other than the teacher. So they're presenting, so there's a public audience.
Or
So-
make some kind of a public product.
Public product. So just, I'm not the only one that sees it, right? There's somebody else that sees it, professionals from a certain area. So that's why, to me, it wasn't like just those, you know, a standard project where I'm the only one that gets credit. And the kids present it to the class and all that.
So those were started with our science department and the middle school science department. I should also mention that halfway through the learning with both schools, the middle school got a new principal, so the new principal needed to pull them back and do things that their site needed to do specifically. So we were left with our department, which was just as well. And you know, and we did what we could. We are making progress. We have teachers who are trying new things. We struggle in the assessment part. That's a big struggle, and I've heard that around here, going to different sessions and talking to folks from other states and cities. And so it's definitely a huge opportunity for growth for us. I feel like in my learning, when we made the decision to roll this out, the science department, I felt like I was really at a primary level learning of the NGSS. So it was scary for me to also bring that out. And also, again, I wasn't a certified science teacher. I co-taught with Bryce for 2 years in biology and fell in love with science. And then got the role of STEM IS, which tasked me with this. So I've learned a ton of information. I would say that after we rolled this out, and then I had the opportunity, I was sent to a couple of other conferences where I got to spend a whole day with the NGSS in Chicago, which really opened up my eyes. I thought, oh man, I would have done this different. We would have done this different with our teachers, actually modeling the practices for them instead of, I mean, it's great to get them thinking about it, but like the authors of this book did, some of the lessons that we used from them, like the authors did, I would have just thrown it out hands out. So model, what does this practice actually look like? Because that's where they struggle. Okay, but you're telling me this, I'm thinking about it, I'm imagining it in instruction in my classroom, but for some of our folks it's just still not there. So we needed to really have them do it so that they can make the connections to what they do in their classroom. And that's where we would completely renail everything, is start off with modeling for them. Yeah. So that's kind of anything else you want to add as to where we are right now in our learning?
We're still working on it, you know.
I feel like I've graduated to more of a middle school, like a 6th, 7th grade-ish level in my NGSS understanding. I know I have still a long way to go. And again, back to purpose, we really wanted to show you guys what we did as two sort of average Joes who don't teach at a university, who weren't part of Achieve or any of these amazing organizations, and how did we try it at local schools.
And there's a lot of resources out there. And so,
and even more.
and there's even more now. So it makes it a little easier to try and help implement this. You know, I've been looking at the performance tasks that they've put up. They have them for middle and high school, and if, you know, I've been looking through those, and they're very involved, very project oriented. So, and that's all on the NGSS website.
Yeah, and our school, so to also give you guys an idea too, our school's focus this year is on a PLC process focus. So we realized that some systems that are broken around our building, it all comes back to PLCs and the need for common formative assessments and the need for formative assessments to occur constantly and have that drive our instruction. So what we've been doing is, for example, the science department decided to come up with a common lab assessment that could be applied to any lab. And
So we're applying it across every subject.
And use the
same lab
NGSS
format.
as they're developing that. So that's that next step, is they're looking at the standards going, okay, how does this fit into creating common formative assessments, eventually common summative assessments. So we're trying to help our teachers fit all of that, as well as fit with their PBL units that they'll need to do this year as well. So we're trying to support that. We are hoping that you all will evaluate our session. This is both of our very first time ever presenting at NSTA or anywhere, any conference. So thank you for being here to get to
Thank you.
with us. This is our contact information. I will have all of the items that are electronic. They'll be in a folder on the NSTA website by Tuesday. I just have to figure out how to do it because I've never done it before. So thank you all for
If you have
coming
questions?
and sitting through with us. Yeah.
Thank you. If you have questions, we're available.
Yes.
I'm at a local high school here. Is there any way we can either collaborate or bring your expertise into our high school?
Oh, we would love to. Oh my gosh.
I don't know. You guys are probably busy all in your own world.
We're going to be less busy.
Yeah, we just need to get permission from our principal and the STEM coordinator. But you know, this is something for me. I just feel like we need to spread what we know right now and help others and get people started. And then folks, just like we do with our own lessons, will adapt it to our needs and our building site needs. We just kind of want to give you all a
What's the
place
best way
to.
to do that? Maybe just to contact one of you?
Yeah, absolutely.
We share an office.
We share, yes.
Yeah, so I can email one of you.
Absolutely, yeah. And
we
he'll
see
probably
each other,
say, "Hey Johnson, do you, so and so needs the electronic files because I have them all on my computer." So
Okay.
we would
Where are you
be
at?
happy to help.
I'm at Coral Academy.
Okay.
Charter School,
Right.
high school, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you have a STEM conference here, or are you going to the STEM Anaheim? in
We're not
California?
going. We don't have a STEM conference here, but and we're not going to the one in July.
Well, there's one next week in Anaheim, California.
Oh no, we would love to, but funding-wise, between title funds were already spent, and then another grant that helps fund us, that's all gone. So,
How many people are in your department?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take care. Well, when we did this, what did we have? Eight people. So,
well, but
'cause-
we had the middle school too, so we had something like what, 14-ish.
and then we
when first
also have
started.
co-teachers as well. So special ed teachers that would join us, or ELL teachers,
ELL.
an ELL teacher would join us.
One of the challenges I think we're dealing with is, like, for instance, biology. We have a lot of bio teachers. You know, too many heads. That's a big problem.
gotcha.
And you try to roll it out as a district wide. Even we don't progress because there's a difference of philosophy.
Absolutely.
That is challenging.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was the positive on our side, was our district not having a plan just yet. And I mean, and maybe I shouldn't say not having a plan. They probably have a plan somewhere. It's just not out. Yeah, and I know last year they were going to try to roll it out through a thing that they call, it's Professional Development Friday, that they do once a month for the instructional coaches and that to then deploy to the schools. NGSS was on the calendar last year, but it got bumped by SBAC testing training, so which is really unfortunate. So I feel like because our district didn't sort of tell us what to do, we had that freedom to do it. And I don't know, even if your district is saying this is our plan, do you maybe have the autonomy at your site
Yeah.
to say,
Well, I have a co-teacher here. We're working together. We want to get the ball rolling, but we get this problem with, the district has their vision, which they're not sharing.
yeah,
And so, how do we roll this out? It's like, how do we reach out to the district who's, hard-headed,
who's maybe not in
or
support?
Yeah, I don't. Well, yeah. I mean, if they have a vision and they're not sharing it, then that makes it real tough.
and they want to have an NGSS committee, but they're only including so many teachers. But it's like, it's like telephone.
Yeah.
You get to that one point where the message gets distorted. How do we get everyone to have a PD opportunity here? Everyone in the same
Absolutely.
room, instead of having.
Yeah, I don't.
I'm just wondering how you dealt with.
You
the
know, I
district
almost
level.
wonder if you could take the route, and again, within the boundaries of your principal and building of getting your teachers working towards this, getting them the foundation, getting them the experience, having them employ this stuff in their classroom and be successful, and invite district folks in to say, hey, almost kind of like a, look at this, model lesson, look at NGSS in action, look at, maybe show them how it's working and show them how well it's going, and then hopefully that would beg the question, well, how did you do that?
Does Nevada have a framework out right now?
As far as how to implement the NGSS, no.
Okay, so same with California, we don't have a framework. That's why
Yeah.
everyone's kind of reluctant to move forward, because
Yeah.
if you don't know the framework, how are we supposed to kind of embed the NGSS and all that?
And we had that question, and we just said, we're doing it. We're just in that, this is where you got the sort of bottom line, basics, I guess.
And then within 2 years, they're supposed to do the assessment, right? 2017.
Well, our Nevada's,
17 is what I heard.
Yeah.
we still don't know what that looks like for us.
I know,
Yeah.
so it's so hard to change.
What? Yeah. And what we went, my colleagues, our colleagues, what we thought is, you know what? NGSS is good.
Yeah.
This is
It's good for
good
students.
teaching.
It's good
Yeah,
teaching.
you can get that.
And so we're going to move forward with it, and whatever tests may come, our students will be prepared for that because of the standards.
The conceptual understanding. I feel like if we're hitting conceptually and we have kids doing science, not reading about science, I feel like even though we're throwing darts right now, I feel like we might actually be hitting some targets, you know, if we can actually get that going. And what would an assessment look like? We don't even know, like statewide.
Well, because if you look at the performance tasks,
yeah.
it's a project.
Yeah.
It is a project.
And we ask those same questions.
Yeah.
Oh, we used to have an exam called Golden State exam, where you sat down in a little cubicle area. You actually did an experiment, which was thrown out.
Okay.
Yeah, actually, the gentleman out here, he teaches up at South Lake Tahoe, was talking about it too.
Yeah,
Oh,
that
that's
was a
interesting.
great assessment.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
but you know, how do you grade it? How are you?
Well, they already had a system in place to
Right,
assess
but
it.
you know, but when we're looking at in Washington County
Yeah.
of 64,000 students,
Yeah,
you know, I mean, how do you effectively and efficiently do that?
that's true.
Because what it starts to look like is AP grading,
Yeah.
and that is a lot of money and a lot of time.
Yeah. I think, yes, ma'am.
I just have a question, as far as, one thing we're struggling, I'm in Humboldt County, I mean, we're struggling on everything, because it's all ELA, and it's all math
Oh, yeah.
right now, and science doesn't matter, according to our district. But I wanna see, do you have teachers in your district that you're like, that's what this looks like? And you can videotape them, and we can I mean, I wanna see this in action.
We actually have through our, let me give you a website. It is WCSD21.com. We have a fantastic 21st century learning department here, and they have filmed a lot of lessons in action. I will say they are heavy on elementary, and here's the reason why, is because we move slowly at high school level, and our job this year, we are really trying, so the work that we've done with science, we're going to be going into some of these classrooms and trying to model what this instruction looks like for a week. We will be inviting them out. So if you just keep that for future and maybe email me, so I have your email, so that, I was gonna say should this happen, when this happens, because this is the goal of ours, the video could be on there. And you know, it's probably gonna be messy and rough, but it would at least give it, exactly, it would give it an idea and a starting point, and so keep that handy, and we'll definitely try to get that out there. So
Yeah, and I mean, it's a slow process, and I think luckily our principal knows this. Like I said, he was a science
Very
teacher,
supportive.
and this really is a shift. I think it's a paradigm shift. We are shifting how we're going to be teaching science.
Well, we're having to change our mentality.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not how we were taught.
Exactly. I mean,
It's not how the
exactly.
colleges teach.
Look at where we went.
And that's what's
We went jigsaw, we went turn and talks, we went, again,
Posters.
and not posters, and not realizing until you realize. And one other thing too that might help you in thinking about time-wise is, in Chicago, another thing that really stuck with me was one of the presenters said it takes teachers a minimum of 100 contact hours to truly understand something new. So then I didn't feel so bad in my own understanding and where we were as a department. I thought, oh, we're about 12 hours in. So that's something to keep in mind too.
Well, and also we heard that the EOCs they're developing for Nevada are just, at least high school level, are just gonna be life science, and if there's money in the budget, they'll add it. to
Yeah,
That
as
is
of right
where
now,
that's
it's
at,
only
yes.
We have
it's
all
going to be
this
biology.
physical science.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is
So,
true. That's where we're at
yeah.
right now.
But here's the route though that we've gone is that yes, there's going to be more pressure on biology because that's going to be the end of course exam. But telling our teachers this is kind of a golden age in sense of teaching science because you can kind of have the freedom to go where you want.
Right.
And so don't be confined by I got to get through all this material by such and such a date
See, that was.
because you don't have to.
Yeah, what can we throw out?
Yeah,
Well, have them
well,
focus
that's
on-
the
yeah.
beautiful thing about the NGSS is because of how they're banded. And he and I had this epiphany moment at some point last year where we were like, wait a minute, means proficiency by the end of grade 12. By the end of grade 12, when we're looking at these performance expectations, so we really started to think about, okay, then how can we scaffold within each performance expectation what maybe happens in a bio class, how we can hit this. Now what does it look like if I'm in physical science or chemistry, and so on and so forth, so that by the end of grade 12, our kids can perform that expectation.
What's your course
That was
sequence?
the same.
Bio,
All freshmen get
biology for all.
And then after that, then there's either chemistry, which is honors, or physical science. So there's a split there. And then junior and senior year, you have physics, AP Chem, AP Bio.
Choice.
Yeah, you have earth science, environmental.
And our state did switch to a requirement of, the Gateway curriculum says kids need 3 years of science.
They need to be enrolled in 3 years of science. They really only need to pass 2 years.
You know, I talked to Andre De Leon about that. He knew nothing about it. He said, no, it's only 2. And I told him that part, and he's like, what state would ever make that decision?
Ours.
I go, I think that's what we have. So then I thought, well, maybe I don't understand it.
No,
No,
that's right.
I'm a state science coordinator.
Yeah, no, that's.
No, they only,
in
officially
our
they only
school
have to pass
district, that's
2.
what it is. Yeah.
And they have to be enrolled in 3. They have to be
and
enrolled in a
it's
third year.
destroyed our science program. We had
Thank you so much. Please email us with any questions
I will.
or help.
We had 6 chem and 2 physics. We now have 1 chem, and that's it.
Ah.
Wow.
So,
Because all these kids who weren't, we had a lot of kids who would take 3rd and 4th year science, and then when we added in all these kids who didn't really want to, and
well,
they
we
wouldn't
found
hire
that,
new
yeah.
teachers.
We
And
found that with earth science and environmental science, they became dumping grounds.
Right.
Because we had to get these kids a third year of science, but a lot of them sort of kind of knew that they didn't need to pass it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Are they gonna change that?
not to my knowledge.
See, I didn't even know that actually. So I have juniors taking environmental. They're trying hard. I don't even know if they know it. They're doing
Don't
great.
tell them.
I know. In fact, I don't need to know it pretty much.
Well, no,
Well, you have a different setup too.
yeah, and you teach who's there, and if they're it is challenging though, because I've taught environmental science and it was packed and there was kids that didn't want to be there. Like, I don't need to pass this class. So,
Yeah. Atmosphere where we are, which is
Yeah.
good.
no.
Yeah, you're a number one school.